What's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about a fix for you AOD guys. Alright guys, I'm going to go ahead and give you a little bit of an intro to this video. As you all know, we put some new injectors in the car. We went with the Bosch 19-pound injectors. It was just something that I wanted to do. I wanted to get rid of these old injectors and get some new injectors in this thing. So this video is after that. So here in just a second, you're going to see me talking about the car and how it ran afterwards. And what that is after we put the injectors in the car, I'm letting you guys know how it ran, and I will also give you the fix in this video for the car. Now when I tell you this guys, it 100% fixed the car. No issues at all. Also, stick around to the end of the video for a better explanation as to what went on and how all this stuff works. Alright guys, let's get started with the video. So I'm sure you guys are wondering, well, how did the car do? Well, that's kind of a mixed bag. So, you know, we changed the injectors out and I told you guys that the car ran better. It ran pretty good as a matter of fact. Well, it's just been an onslaught of issues with this thing. You know, it would run good for a minute. You could drive it like a mile or two down the road. It would run fine. And then like coming back into the neighborhood at like tip in, this thing would just skip and pop back. Like half throttle and beyond, it was great. Car ran fine. So I got home and I started just replacing parts, honestly. I took the distributor out of the red car, put it in this car. I took the idle air control, put it on this car. The coil, tried different timing, tried all sorts of things, right? So you got to think, whenever I did the distributor, that, you know, covered the TFI module and all that too. Guys, I was just running out of options. You know, I could drive it and it would do good for a minute, and then next thing you know, skipping and popping again. So I think I have found the problem. You know, we've talked about TPS settings in the past, right? We did it with this car. If you've not seen that video, check out Clean Slate right here. Now, obviously, I was adjusting the TPS per a 5-speed. Wow, I've never owned an AOD Foxbody. They're completely different, obviously. I mean, the cars work in the same way as far as timing and whatnot. It definitely affects these cars differently. Now, I've driven the car probably 4 or 5 miles and it seems to be doing great. So before this video is put out, just know that if this is the fix, then the video will stay. If not, you'll never see this video. Anyway, let me tell you, TPS on this car was like 0.83. Well, that's usually what I run on this car. On this particular car, I can get away with 0.83, 0.85. The car actually likes it a lot. Don't have any issues, really. This car, though, being an automatic, it's completely different, guys. So on this, the TPS was at 0.83, and I went ahead, tried to adjust it out, and the only thing it would do was raise the idle. Like the most I could get was like 0.88 out of this thing, and the idle was at like 1,000 RPM. So took the TPS off, drilled it out, and reattached it. So one of the issues that I've run across in the past, if you don't set this TPS on here correctly, you'll actually get the blade in a bind. So I went ahead, pulled it off, slotted it out a little bit on this side, a little more, and then dropped it back in the correct way. So these little springs in here, these little ears have to be under a little bit of tension. So you have to drop it in and then you kind of pull back a little bit. It's hard to explain, but if you do it wrong, then you're going to get the throttle caught up and you're probably going to either raise the idle or keep it, or make it to where it just won't adjust at all. Anyway, long story short, set everything and I think I got it to 0.95, I think's what it was. And you know what, guys? Car runs like a champ. I couldn't believe it. So there you go. There's your tip. You AOD guys, if you've got a skipping, a missing, a popping, a backfiring, whatever, on part throttle on your AOD car, check and make sure that your TPS is set correctly. Like I said, I'll refer you to the video Clean Slate. It's essentially the same thing, but you know, that mythical, magical number, that 0.96, 0.99, you know what, guys? Maybe it applies more to the AOD cars. Now, I'm not an expert on this. So there again, you guys can sound off down in the comment section and explain exactly how this TPS works and how it adjusts timing and everything else. Because it sounded just like the timing on the car was locked. So I had no power, no anything until you went a little further with the throttle, which probably broke that 1 volt threshold. And then at that point, the car picked up and went like it was supposed to. Crazy, right, guys? But yeah, on AOD cars, try to get as close as you can to that 1 volt mark, and I think it'll help the performance of your car. I can't see any other factors that that were an issue. I mean, I replaced everything. Nothing was working. The last thing that I did was the TPS, and that seemed to just be the ticket. So there's that. All right, so I know I probably titled this for you AOD guys, but we got some other stuff that I want to talk about. I have the Calypso clone apart. Well, not really apart, but it's trying to run hot on me. And the car I don't think has a thermostat in it. So we're going to go ahead, pull this thermostat housing, pop a thermostat in the car, and see if that will help. So in case you guys don't know, these cars don't like not having a thermostat. What that thermostat does is hold water in the engine block and also hold water in the radiator. Now what that does is give the fan enough time to cool the water off that's in the radiator. That way when the water in the block gets up to a certain temperature, it can basically do a switcheroo here. So as the water in the engine gets up to temp, the thermostat will open and then this water will swap. So all the water from the radiator will go into the engine, and then once this cools down enough, the thermostat will close again, and this cycle just keeps going. The problem is whenever you don't put a thermostat, is this water's just constantly circulating. Guys, if that was a better option, then these car manufacturers would have let the thermostat out from the factory. You can get away with it in fall and spring a lot of times, but in the summer it is just not a good option. These things will run hot on you. Now if you've got a really big radiator and a really nice fan setup, yeah, you could probably get away with that. But on these stock systems like this, you really need to keep that thermostat in there. So that's what we'll be doing next. So I'm gonna go ahead, pop this off right here, and yeah, change this out. There's really only 2 bolts, and then you have this, the hose down here is the problem. That little hose right there is a pain in the ass. All right guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this video up, and as always, thanks for watching. So I didn't explain myself very good in the video. I have come to find out with these cars that they are very sensitive to timing, meaning the AOD cars. Let's think about this for a second. Now I'm no expert, so don't hit the dislike button just because, you know, I don't know all the tech specs on this, but let's think about this for a second and let's talk it through and let's put it in layman's terms. If you have a 5-speed car and let's say your TPS is a little off, what's one of the first things that you do on a 5-speed car before you go to take off, right? You give it throttle, you kind of rev it up a little bit, and you're able to ease the clutch off, right? So the car's not typically under a major load to where an automatic car, when you go to take off, is immediately under more load, simply because you don't have a clutch to feather, the car's just under load. Okay, so I want to show you something for reference. Now, also understand whenever you are checking your TPS sensor, if you ground it to the body of the car, this number is going to be higher. So as you can see, we're over 1 volt here. So let me change this up real quick, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Now we are grounded to the black wire right here, as you can see, and it changes your TPS voltage. I always ground to the black wire. So this is my point here. Let's say we're at 0.8, right? And we hit our throttle and we go to take off. Okay, that's a decent amount of throttle I'm giving it. So if you're down here at 0.8 and you're giving this thing throttle, you got a long ways to go before you ever cross that 1 volt threshold. You can see the TPS moving here. See that? So that's what changes the TPS setting. Guys, there are a lot of factors, not just the TPS voltage. But I wanted to talk about it because it's something that is overlooked in my opinion. You know, it all has to do with timing, essentially. I run my timing somewhere around 12 to 14. Now, this car actually likes about 14 degrees of timing with 93 octane. If you don't have 93 octane and say the most you have is 91, you might only be able to get away with about 12 degrees or so. It depends. Every car is different. But this particular car loves 14 degrees of timing. Any of you Foxbody gurus will know, looking at this connector here at the plug, that it's actually facing wrong. So this thing is actually a tooth off, the distributor is. So that we'll get into that later. But you can adjust around a tooth off sometimes. So essentially that's the fix, guys. That's it. It's that simple. Make sure that all of your sensors are good. Pull your codes. Do whatever it is that you need to do. And if everything is good and everything's checking out, check your TPS. Okay, it may not be just a voltage issue. It could be a TPS issue itself. So the TPS could be bad. Like I said, if you don't set these things right and you don't put this in with a little bit of preload, you're actually doing it wrong. So you could put a new TPS on your car, but install it wrong. You can install, there's two little blades in here. There's two little notches, and they catch that blade, right? That's what makes everything move, as you can see. If you install this wrong on the wrong side, then this TPS won't read right. So if you're having those type problems, check that out. Anyway, I just wanted to come back out because I know I didn't really explain myself very good, and if we need to, we can do a whole nother base idle reset video. Let's think about something real quick, like, and I promise I'll let you guys go. Think about a 5-speed car with stock gears, and you're cruising there again 35 mile an hour, and you got this thing in 5th gear. What's the car going to want to do? It's going to want to buck on you, right? It's a very common thing for the 5-speed guys, especially after you put a cam in the car. It wants to buck on you. That's what this car is doing, but you can't make it stop. You can't get out of that load because it's an automatic. You can work around that with a 5-speed. You can drop down another gear and typically get it out of that. So anyway, that's it, guys. I just want to leave you with that. That was the fix. It's TPS. Everybody check that stuff. Check all of your sensors. Check everything out, and I hope that this helps somebody. All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up, and as always, thanks for watching.